Why do you say in the book that emotions and intelligence are inseparable?
Because I think that in order for any being to exist in a world, that it has to have some automatically it has to decide on what it wants to do at any given moment. It has to have certain goals or drives that it is trying to achieve. If it doesn't have such things, if it doesn't decide such things, it'll just follow down completely random pathways. So it has to be able to control those pathways, and that means it has to have some principles that are guiding it. And those principles can be called its desires or its goals. And when it finds that it's frustrated, well, that frustration is, in essence, an emotion. Mm-hmm. And when it is looking at itself and attempting to examine how much progress it has made and what kind of progress it is likely to make given the current situation, it can have optimism or pessimism, hope or despair.
So the goals artificial intelligence is after are real intelligence, so also real emotions.
Well, those goals, I don't know if most people in artificial intelligence would say so. I get the impression, for some reason my opinion is a minority opinion, but I get the impression that most people in artificial intelligence would be perfectly happy talking about intelligence without any emotions.
But according to your theory, that is not really feasible in the end.
Yeah, I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think it could exist. But most people in the field, I guess, think that the two have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah. But because what if you reach the goal? There are a lot of moral problems on the horizon right then, right? I mean, you talk about it vaguely in the book. Actually, not. You sort of evade it. You say somebody says that a computer cannot really think unless it knows how to cry, and you say that's a very, very deep issue. Unfortunately, many AI workers at this time are unwilling for various reasons to take this sort of point seriously, but in some ways those AI workers are right. It is a little premature to think about computers crying. But isn't it like saying, well, we've got the atoms, we know if we put them together they might make a big bang, but it's very premature to think about atomic war, etc.?
Well, if one could see very clearly that something bad was going to come of computers having emotions, then maybe it would be bad. But the way I look at artificial intelligence is that it's trying to understand what the mind is and not trying to replace anybody by anything. And if it turns out that see, I don't believe that we're likely to create a machine that has our kinds of emotions or intelligence. I don't think that's going to happen for an awful long time.
For an awful long time, but you do think it is possible?
Might happen, you know.
So at the moment you do think it is possible, and at the moment you're working really at the goal that has to do with that, shouldn't you start thinking about the moral aspects of...
Moral for who?
Well, it's couldn't you call it play God, Frankenstein, creating?
Well, supposing that the creatures that we create are very moral creatures, then it might be best for the world.
Suppose, but that is the starting of a...
Well, all I mean is, how do I know? I don't know anything about what would happen. Neither did the people who invented the car. How did they know that there was going to be a terrible parking problem on Beacon Hill where I live? I mean, they didn't think about that, and they didn't think it was going to make life inconvenient for me and make me park every day more than a mile away from where I live. People who invented the car weren't worried about problems of people that were going to take place 80 or 90 years later. All they did was they said, we want to be able to move from here to there without using horses. And they didn't know that it was going to create gigantic economic problems having to do with oil and so forth. Mm-hmm. And are you going to blame them? I mean, you might say, well, isn't it going to get out of hand? Well, who says it's going to get out of hand? Who says that we're going to have robots suddenly proliferating all over the place? We might. But even if we did, maybe that would be better. Maybe it would be better for the Earth to have, I mean, maybe it would be better if the human race, instead of transmitting itself forward by means of biology, transmitted itself forward by means of artificial creation and left as its successors these beings. How do I know? If such a thing happened. I mean, all I'm saying is I'm not convinced that the human race is the most important thing in the world, and I think you know, we can't control what's going to happen in the future. We want things to be good, but on the other hand, we aren't so good ourselves. We're no angels. If there were creatures that were more moral and more good than us, wouldn't we wish them to have the future rather than us? If it turns out that the creatures that we created were creative and very, very altruistic and gentle beings, and we are people who go around killing each other all the time and having wars, wouldn't it be better if the altruistic beings just survived and that we didn't?
I don't